Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Program with Cientier. And today is part 7 of the timeline program. It's been a little while since I've actually worked on it because I needed to spend some time thinking about how I wanted to do this crazy timeline overview form window. And I have some thoughts about how I want to approach that now, just because I've spent some time thinking about it. But I actually want to not work on that right away because I want to get saving and loading stuff finished, so that way I can start doing stuff with that. Obviously, it will take the program a moment. Okay, so, yep, okay, can see my time, not very long. Now, there's one thing that I definitely want to make sure that I'm doing with this, and that is actually, I want to make it so that way I'm collecting command line parameters. Now, I don't remember, I've done this before, but I don't remember exactly how to do it. So that's where MSDN comes in, hooray. C# command line parameters, hooray. So let's see, this is giving me a bunch of stuff. I want this, the command line command line arguments. Okay, so you just put string args. That'll work then. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Let's see. Is there anything in here that I specifically need to know? It doesn't look like it. Okay. So I might need that later, so I'm just going to minimize that. So let's go ahead and put our string args in here. We don't necessarily have to call it args, but I'm going to because I feel like it. And then what's important here to do is now the reason why I want to capture command line parameters is I want to be able to open my timeline files by double clicking on them. I want to be able to set up a file association, and to do that you need to be able to receive the file name as an argument. That's what I'm remembering from the last time I did it anyway. Water break. And so I need to be able to capture those and pass them along. I don't remember how I did it last time. I've tried running a search to see if I could find the code, but it's currently been proven unfruitful. I found something that looked like it may have been the thing, but it was not anything done in it. So I don't have that old code to reference, which is okay. Unfortunate, but okay. So I'll need to test out some stuff with this later, but for now, I'm just going to set that in there so that way I can capture stuff for that once I've done some tests. Again, any sort of like things that require me to actually interact with my files on disk, I'm just going to do kind of separately, and then I'll go over them, which is part of why I want to get all of the I/O stuff set up in this session, so that way I can take a break and test out some stuff on my own time. Now, it might be possible if I spend some time learning how to do video editing with Blender that I could kind of combine stuff. But so right now, our load data 0 is definitely not honky-dory, by which I mean it doesn't do anything, which is definitely not what we want. Now, for it to be able to do something, we need to be able to read with timelines, and right now we can only save. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to make a public void read binary reader, and I call this input. You can't call them in or out because those are actual keywords for specific things. I forget, or like right here, like in events, and then out is actually a keyword that you can use. Like right here, I can do that, and that has a special meaning that I'll go into if it ever comes up. But anyway, so I can see right away I want an event count, so that's going to equal input.read int32 because that's what it outputs. And then for int I equals 0, I is less than event count. I'm just iterating for those number of things, and I'm going to need to be able to get events. So what I actually want right here is I can't just capture an event because I don't know what I'm looking at. So what I want is to come down I'm going to need to add. So while I'm over here, I'm just going to add a read to this guy because it's right here and it needs it. So this means name equals input read string. And then date equals, let's see, because how do I, whatever, dot read in 32. Okay. I should be able to capture that. No, that's timeline date. Oh, okay, right. This is the event base read. Okay, yeah, this is not where I want this. Sorry, I got a little confused about what I was looking at. Okay, so what I actually need with this is I don't need a base read. I need a void abstract read. I switched the order on abstract and void, which happens sometimes. Okay, read binary reader input. Okay, so this is a function that we're going to need for process or for reading in actual information. What I'm going to go ahead and add here is something that this is going to need that I did not have. Is I'm going to need to output write. I'm going to need to add a another abstract here. So 1 second. Public no, this actually can be protected. I think protected abstract type ID. This is an int get. Okay, and this is going to need to output type ID. So the reason for that is really actually quite simple. I need to be able to know what type of event it is, and I don't automatically have that information. So that type ID is going to be actually written in these guys, and then when it's called here, it's going to collect the correct one, or at least it should. And then I want to add a protected void. I'm just going to call this read standard info. Binary reader. Actually, it's probably best if I do it the way that I did that other one. So let's make this a protected underscore read that you need to specify. I'm going to go ahead and actually move this up here next to the save. And then I'm going to come down here. I'm going to delete some of this extra space and binary reader input. So the first thing that this is going to need to do is actually, so the way I'm going to actually set this up, there's different ways that I could process sort of this step, but I think this is probably the cleanest. I'm going to go ahead and make this static and return an event base. And the reason for that is actually going to be very straightforward. I need, let's just call this E equals null, and then int ID equals input read int 32. So I need to take the ID, and then I'm going to add if E does not equal null, E dot read input return E. So what I'm going to do here is by default this doesn't do anything, but if it's case 0, which I'm going to make the split timeline event, it's going to equal new split timeline. And then if it's this case, this is going to be the standard event ID, and then this is going to be e equals new standard event. So this means that I will be able to read in the standard information. So what I'm actually going to go ahead and do is go here and say, okay, so I've read in the ID, and I know which type I'm going to be making. So then I need to read in the name. So I'll read in the name, and then I also need to do e.date.read, but date doesn't have a read yet. So let's go ahead and take a quick jump over to timeline dates and add a read to them as well. And this is going to be raw value equals input.read int 32, because that's what raw value is. Okay, then I can come back over here and I can add a read, throw input in, and so ID gets read here, then I read the name. Make sure you're always reading things in the order that it's supposed to be read in, the date, and then the specific read for the thing. Okay, so that should cover what this one needs. And the reason why it's static is when we go over here, we're going to go EventBase E equals event base.read input. So this is then going to be able to read that whole thing in rather than do it in multiple steps. It's just a little bit cleaner that way. But that also means I need to add a couple of things to here. So I need to add a read, which is, this is going to need to be timeline.read input. Now this should be an empty timeline, right? Because it should just be the fresh timeline because it's just getting made. This can't be done without creating a new node, so I don't need to worry about clearing any data, although that could be a concern if it was publicly exposed. And I also need to override type ID to make it a return 0, because that's what this type is. This is unfortunate bit of auto formatting where this doesn't really need to be on more than one line. So I'm just going to go ahead and move it on to one line. Add this here. This is ID 1. Make sure your IDs are linked up. It'd probably be a good idea to use an enum or a set of consts or something for this. But I'm not. But that would actually be a good idea. I just don't have enough events where it's like worthwhile for keeping track of stuff. But if you had a lot of stuff going on, it absolutely would be. So input.read string, because that is a string, and that should be set up. Okay. Okay, so then that should be, I think. Is there anything else that I need for reading? The timeline reads there. I think I did this. That sort was correct. I'll find out, I suppose. Okay, I need view the code for that. And so this needs to be main timeline dot read input. Okay. All right, so I need to make clear timeline information work, and it needs to be very thorough. So where did I define this? I defined it right down here. Okay, so there's a few things that this is going to need to do. This is going to need to main timeline equals new timeline. That's really important. That's kind of a major step. That's going to clear out our underlying data. So this is useful for all sorts of things. The other thing, okay, actually loading. Yeah, this is going to need to add right here. This is going to need to add current, or it's going to need to actually do it right up here. Current file name equal file name. All right, because that I need to make sure I'm capturing that. So what that means is that this right down. Oh, I lost track of where my thing was. Right here. This right here can make current file name empty. Okay. I guess I already did it right there, but whatever. I'm doing it right here too, just to be thorough. Okay. So the other thing that I need to do is I need to let's see. Let's see. How do I do this? Okay, I'm going to need. Okay, so it might be cleaner to make a clear for this. Void clear. Deletes all events from this timeline. So oh yeah, I also for this load I need to make sure that events.addy. Because right now all of the events are just in this. This is okay. So go events dot. Whoop. Clear starts with a C. I may have missed a control on a control S. Okay. So it probably, and the reason why I'm doing that is instead of setting this to be a new timeline, if I clear this, then that will allow it to be a little bit cleaner. So do I have the list of tabs? Do I keep a list of tabs anywhere? Okay, no, it does not look like it. Okay, so what I want to do is timelines.tabpages.remove at nope, just I. It doesn't like that because I need to add a 4. Equals 1, I is less than timelines.tabpages.count plus I. So what I'm doing right here is this is saying clear out all of the additional timelines that we have made. And I'll be able to test this really easily just through the new functionality. But then the next thing that I need to do is main timeline control controls.clear. Okay, so let's just make sure I'm going through things. Clear out the file name. Clear out the main timeline of events. Remove additional timelines from the tab control and clear all controls from the. Yep, that's not going to do what I want. That's really, or no, it might do what I want, but it's actually really important that I go into the timeline control and make sure, because this might, yeah, this has, excuse me, this has this list, and I need to clear this out. So I'm actually going to add a public void clear timeline events function to this. So that way I can call that, because otherwise I think that it won't work properly. Clear timeline events. Clear the control of timeline events, and then I actually kind of want to go environment dot. I think there should be a way of making the garbage collection run. Let's see. Yeah, that's nice. C# run garbage collection. I just want to make sure the garbage collection gets run. Let's see. The reason why I would want to do it here is just to make sure that it's properly clearing up, but okay, GC. Okay, I want to GC dot collect. Do I want to select? Yeah. So I just want to, when you clear the timeline, I want to make sure it cleans up everything. So I don't have, it's making sure that stuff gets cleared. Run garbage collection. So this is related to a concept called memory management, which you don't generally have to worry about in C#, although sometimes you do a little bit. For example, if you're doing a lot of stuff with images, you might need to clear out your garbage. You might need to tell the images to dispose, rather, to make sure you're freeing assets. It's really important to make sure you're not, for lack of a better word, leaving a bunch of stuff flying around that's going to take up a bunch of space, because you can run out of memory. If you run out of memory with your program, it doesn't work anymore. It crashes, typically. So I want to try to make sure that I'm taking care of that, I suppose. So let's go control C in timeline events C dot. So what you'll find with a lot of Windows stuff is you'll find this dispose command, which clears out stuff that allocates memory, things like images and controls and stuff. And it can actually be a really good idea to actually do that if you're doing a lot of stuff, just because that will clean everything up. Now, I'm not sure if I need to worry about some of the events that I have going on, just because the items that they're being attached to are getting cleaned up. If this was C++, where I was doing stuff with that, I would be a lot more intentional about cleaning everything up, but C# is a lot messier in terms of, like, I'm not really sure 100% what's going on with the memory, and it's kind of intended to be that way. So I just kind of want to make sure that I'm, like, cleaning up as much as I understand to clean up, and trusting in the garbage collection to be like, yeah, that's not being used anymore, and killing everything. Hopefully I don't have like a bunch of orphaned pieces of data that are referencing each other and causing all sorts of problems. I don't know if that'll be the case or not, but that's one of the, I guess, squiggly parts that I have with C#, is it can be a little ambiguous to me. So I'm just going to go ahead and run this program right now and clean up these errors that are no doubt, yeah, one of this stupid thing, which I want to be conscious of not doing again. Okay, built this time. One of the other things that I did in between sessions, by the way, that you'll notice is I improved the smaller sizes of the program icon because it had scaled very poorly. So you'll notice that that looks much better now. So I want to add some events. Do I not have stuff for these? Okay. So now if I hit new, it should, yeah, okay, all that stuff disappeared. And that's back to being blank. Okay. So the question is, am I deallocating all of my memory correctly? I don't actually know. Hopefully it's something that doesn't come up enough that it's not a problem. It's just really hard for me to kind of know if I've gotten everything. So I probably want to add stuff there. I mean, I can go A, E. That's actually really easy. So that's actually not too bad if I'm just going off of those. So I'm gonna call this pi. E, because you can go to those with Alt, so it's really easy to actually go up to that. And the shortcuts for that is basically like Alt A E and Alt A T. So that's actually really, really easy. So I don't think I need specific like control shortcuts or anything. Alt's a bit easier to use than control to some extent as well. But anyway. Okay, so that looks fine. Actually, what I want to do now is I want to go into program and do this. I just want to quickly check what's being passed in the command line args. Okay, so right now this is just an empty string. And is there application? Gotta watch application dot. Okay. There's all sorts of stuff here. What I'm looking for is if this has any of the command line stuff in this. It doesn't look like it. Environment dot command line. Okay, and that has the directory for the base information, but otherwise doesn't have much. So I think I'm going to test some of that stuff kind of off camera with the file types, but it looks like the new event stuff is working. So I'm going to, at this point, I think this particular episode looks like it's gone fairly long enough. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up here for now. And I'm going to test some of the file saving and loading stuff on my own time, and try to get that working, and then catch you up on the next episode with what sort of stuff I might need to have done for that. And then we will tackle the overview display. So I think that sounds like the plans for next time. So thank you for joining me this time, and I will see you in a week. So take care. Bye-bye.